This podcast contains adult themes and language. The views expressed here are our own opinions and experiences. We are not medical professionals.
In this podcast, we discuss our opinions about mental health, sobriety, addiction, and our pursuit of happiness and peace. This is Sober Mind.
Lisa. Oh. Where'd the old Lisa go?
There's Lisa.
Lisa, good morning. Oh, yeah, everybody.
Yeah.
Happy Saturday. Welcome to Sober Mind. My name is John. We have Elisa from the great north. Yeah, north.
Good morning. Good morning.
And my beautiful wife.
Judy.
And my dear, dear friend.
I'm Patrick.
And this is Sober Mind. Good, everybody. And we have Jacob. Jerry, like that. Thanks for the introduction, Jacob. Okay.
My name is Jacob.
My name is Jacob. All right. Before we get started, as we usually do, we're going to start with our... Okay, hold on. Let me back up. Today we're going to be talking about the use of psychedelics and alternative medicines or practices in the treatments of alcoholism, addiction, and
depression, anxiety, PTSD.
Yeah, anything mental health.
The bucket.
Yes.
The bucket.
The infamous mental bucket.
I do want to clarify that we have not tried this. I know I have some friends that have, and I've done a little bit of research on it. But you know how we do on the show. We're gonna have a spirited discussion and get some information out there to you all, and let you know that there's alternatives for you to explore. When we get done with the show, I don't want to hear about anyone running out and buying some street grade ketamine and going home,
falling into a K-hole.
Yeah. if you decide to go into this stuff, we obviously recommend and advise that you do plenty of research and you talk to a medical professional.
And we are not medical professionals.
We are not.
No.
We don't represent any particular body of health
That's right.
or wellness or
Marcus.
any certified anything.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Good morning, Kim. Good morning, Lisa, Michelle, Marcus, my dear friend. This is amazing. I got to tell you guys a story about.
Oh, we have to do Brian and Odie too.
Yes, Brian is on. Odie's. Well, as the chat continues to grow, I don't know who could do this. It'd be turned into like a half an hour roll call. You guys introduce yourselves. Okay. Yeah, so Jacob says he used mushrooms to get sober. However, everything has side effects and perception issues are rough. So yeah, we will definitely get into that. But before we get started on the official subject, let's do a moment of gratitude. Lisa, do you want to start or do you want to go last?
Good morning, everybody. I'm grateful to be here. My mic is being a little touchy. Is it being touchy on that end?
It's good.
Okay. Grateful to be here. Grateful it's sunny and warm. I like warm.
Yeah.
And grateful for y'all.
We're grateful for you. Thank you. Who wants to go next?
I'll go.
Go. Have it.
Okay. So this morning when I was doing some research and yesterday I was doing some research on this topic, and I just am grateful for this YouTube channel that allows me to delve into these areas and to learn and absorb and to grow myself as a person, as a somewhat erudite human being. So I'm grateful for that, to be able to have these things come up in my life and to just to grow as a person. And thank you, and grateful for this channel to allow that to happen in my life.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being my first co-host and first guest.
Was I your first guest? Yeah, I was your first. Yeah. Cool.
You're like, tell me about how you've been an asshole all these years. I was like, Jesus, Judy, way to come in. Huh? Just kidding. All right.
We're going to have to create a series on that, John.
Yeah.
We can't do it in one episode.
It's a whole nother show.
That
It's a whole
cemented
nother
her
show.
co-host status from there on out.
That's right. All right, Patrick, my dear friend.
I didn't know what I was going to talk about for gratitude today. So I realized I was going to go meta a little bit. I'm grateful for gratitude itself, meaning every time I get disjointed or separated or lost in my emotions, gratitude is this not of like, let me list off of what I am thankful for or happy about. Like sometimes it is very humbling, and it recenters yourself to a real, like to appreciate or understand where things are, even if they are not complete or whole or whatever. Just, changing your perspective to see things where they are and just understanding the amount of effort that they've taken to get there. Right.
Yeah.
So it's uplifting because it's very humbling at the same time.
Nice.
So.
Thank you, Patrick.
Good one.
Mine is sort of in the same realm of that. I was grateful, and I had a lot of gratitude all week for my continued mental, even-keeled stability, which has been very refreshing for me.
And you have been tested this week.
Yeah, for sure. Judy and I came to a realization yesterday about something between us, and maybe we'll talk about that in a minute. But with my continued spiritual and mental development and growth, I have found that I've been reaching out and connecting to old people. I inadvertently created my own Alcoholics Anonymous philosophy. In one of the steps there, I reached out to a guy at work that I worked with for a long time, and I was like, hey, I just wanted to let you know that over the last few years when we were working together, I drank a lot. I was an alcoholic, and I think I treated you with a lot of disrespect at times. And it kind of caught him off guard. I get that. It could be pretty off-putting sometimes. People are like, where the shit is this? Where's this coming from out of left field, especially in professional relationships?
I'm in the Midwest. Let's just talk about the weather, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Don't get too
Exactly.
deep.
Yeah,
man.
right?
But he
On the surface.
but he's like, oh man, I thought we had a great relationship. And then he is not of my ethnicity. So he just straight up said, he goes, I thought that's just how you white people in the Midwest were. I'm like, oh, well, that's not how we are. Some of us are dicks, but anyway, it felt nice to be able to apologize. And I didn't have any preconceived notion within myself or anxiety about it. I just wanted to clear the air and tell someone that. And then the other day, just through kismet, or you know how I love fate, through my job, I got put into a situation where I just rekindled a relationship with Marcus. We've known each other for 2 decades. Mm-hmm. And when I left California, our relationship just sort of evaporated a little bit, which they do sometimes. But the cliche of it is, real friends can just reconnect. And we had a video call, and it was like we were just with each other a couple days ago still. So it was fantastic. And just to be able to rekindle those relationships and talk. I tell you what, it did have a profound effect on me. It was bizarre. That night I had a lot of dreams about the past and a lot of dreams about Marcus. No erotic content whatsoever, just dreams about Marcus.
Okay.
But it was, how it's having those rekindling moments, I think it opens up something within us that maybe we didn't know was there, and your subconscious is like, hey, we got a lot of things we want to discuss internally and go through. It was very strange the next couple days. So
yeah, it's interesting you bringing up the brain patterning, which is a point that I would like to talk to today. So I don't want to dismiss or cut short your gratitude, but it's a very pertinent aspect of what we're going to talk about today.
Neuroplasticity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
I love that word.
That was a long gratitude.
It was a good one.
We've been also, I just wanted to make, so one of these shows, if you guys are good with it, I was telling Judy this morning, we have thousands of comments now on the shorts. And I would like to make a list of some of the really positive ones. There's tons of people, make comments like, hey, I just found this channel. I needed to hear this. This really helped me. This kept me motivated. This stopped me from drinking today. Stuff like that.
What is that?
Yeah.
Was it Conan that did that? He would do the haters where they'd have to read their tweets?
Yeah, there's a couple that do that. There's
That was a good one.
Yeah, I want to do the mean ones. I've kept them on there because some people are just like
Trolls.
They are. They're very trolly, but
they're funny because they're so transparent.
Yeah.
Coming from
very. It's like you clearly need help with this. So
Yeah.
If you tried any harder, you'd give yourself an aneurysm.
Right. The one I got this morning, this gal said, your positivity and optimism makes me physically uncomfortable.
I would take that as a compliment.
No, I was like, fuck yeah, job done.
Yeah.
She's like, ugh, yeah, get out and breathe some fresh air. You'll be okay. All right. Let's get into it. Lisa, did you want to? Sorry, that came off. God damn it, Lisa.
I'm in the box.
You're in the box. You're in your fluorescence. I didn't realize that when I picked this, the overlay, the fluorescence of the cams, well, on purpose, yeah, but it matches our live on air too.
It's okay. I just glow.
Yeah.
Just your natural
Aura.
essence.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay, let's jump into it. Lisa, as usual, just chime in. Don't wait for us to break, or if you just want to listen and moderate us, have at it. Okay, I'll start. Yeah?
Sure.
I'm talking. I'm just fucking doing it.
Go.
Okay, so I'm going to go a little bit off subject, but it falls within the same realm. The one that I want to talk about and bring awareness to people are when I was going through my major depressive episodes, I knew that medication for me was not going to be a long-term fit. And just a reminder, I was on SSRIs, SNRIs, mood stabilizers, antipsychotics, way too much. But this is sort of the rabbit hole. We had a really good discussion about this called exit plan. Talk to your doctor about what am I going to do to get off of this. It's really difficult to navigate. if anyone ever wants to have like a personal consultation with me, I can tell you my experience. I got a whole long video out there that's got a ton of views, but going down that path is pretty difficult. And then just to be transparent, I've never felt better since I got off of antidepressants. It wasn't the right mix for my brain chemistry. Or
maybe you were ready for that point too.
Yeah, maybe I was ready, but it's tough to get the psychiatrists to say, yeah, they don't. It's a crapshoot. I don't want to be in their position. It's a rough gig. Anyway, I'm not disparaging medical professionals or psychiatrists, but just if you don't like your psychiatrist, yes, or meds by any means.
They work for some people.
And find something that works for you. And let me wrap this up so I'm not talking like I'm disparaging it. Challenge the process with your medical professionals and don't just settle for one thing.
Yeah, I think what we're trying to get at, especially, I'm going to reel it back to 50,000 foot view here, is again with our theme of finding modality, is not like accepting like the one path, this one prescribed drug is going to grant me my freedom and going to fix my problems, right?
Right.
And this is about finding modalities. And so too must we talk about like psychedelics are entering back into our lexicon about this. The Food and Drug Administration just last year approved for MDMA to be used in clinical sets. And there's been a long history of these being used in clinical settings. The point is like, I will preface this later, but like, if you go in thinking like, traditional medicine's not working for me, I need to do psychedelics because that's what's going to fix me, that's part and parcel of the same problem that we're talking about.
Right.
Right? Like these, and we'll get into the reasons why. And again, I just want to emphasize finding modality is not necessarily accepting the one path in front of you. It's having this desire to continue to explore, because the medication for you may be appropriate at a time, but you need to be in tune with yourself to be like, is it not time, or is there something else, like you have to, it's a continual evolution and growth that you have to be in contact with yourself on.
Yeah, I think it's taking responsibility for your own life.
Yep.
And being mindfulness.
Yep.
Being aware of what's going on in your body, and taking that extra step to take care of yourself, to take responsibility for your own medical, emotional, and physical needs.
And not being afraid of the work, because
Yes.
there's a difference between wanting to be better and wanting to get better.
Yep.
Yes.
Most definitely. Most
Yeah.
definitely. I think this topic, the research that I did was, it doesn't work for everybody. Obviously, it's what we're talking about. It's not going to work for everybody. But the stuff that I did research and the stuff that I did watch was very beneficial for a lot of people. And these things you only had to do one session and have, not for everybody, but for a lot of people, 70 to 85% of people who did this at Johns Hopkins study that they did came out of it with only needing one session or only needing 2 sessions.
Hold on, I got to pull us back on track.
No, I'm not. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I just want to cover mine real quick, and then we'll jump into these other modalities. Sorry. So while I was going through the depressive episodes, and also real quick, I know we're getting excited. I'm guilty of this. I go down the Reddit or internet rabbit hole sometimes, and it's very good and it's very dangerous at the same time. Sometimes it's like, well, what works for someone's like, you just got to do this. You're like, okay, that sounds great, and then you're like,
be subjected to confirmation bias,
right?
Like, oh, that sounds good. I'm going to look at more stuff that does that, and all of a sudden you're like wearing a tinfoil hat and doing all sorts of other things.
Yeah. Next thing you know, you're reading 4chan green text stories on Reddit, and you're like, "Oh, this is funny." No, that's not
quality content.
Okay. Anyway, sorry, babe. I didn't want to.
Go ahead.
You guys are gonna have the reins in just a sec. What I wanted to talk about real quick was the one that I thought was fascinating, and I was gonna start pursuing it, and I may look into it later. But ECT, electroconvulsive therapy. It is an old method, but it is brand new, revitalized.
Are we talking like shock therapy?
Yeah, and so in the 60s and 70s, it was pretty prevalent and barbaric, torturous. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest did a really good job with showing how that works, but the new version of it is more of electromagnetic stimulation, and it takes several treatments, and they've shown great success rates especially with depression. I don't know about PTSD, anxiety, or panic, but those kind of start to go hand in hand with the depressive episodes. But it really does this rewiring of neurotransmitters and stuff in the brain. So it's an option to look at. And that's it for me. I imagine we're going to start to cover, cognitive behavioral therapy is a really good one too.
Yes. So there's a lot of stuff that I really want to talk about, and I'm going to lean on Lisa here a little bit because I want to set the table of like why this is important in the discussion of recovery and in therapies. And I want to begin to speak like, well, what are the psychedelics that we're talking about, and why is it important, and what it does to the brain. So let's just kind of do the basics is, you talked about being on SSRIs. These hallucinogens, affect these serotonin and other pathways that we traditionally use in our brain, right? And the best way I can describe it is like, we like to think the brain is this all-powerful thing. Like, I can recall memory, and it's literally like you walk into an Amazon warehouse and it has the automated robot that goes out and picks it up, and it like comes in front of you and it delivers, and you're like, I recalled it. But it's nothing like that. It's like the old curmudgeon man that has everything like nestled away into certain corners in this whole maze of a warehouse. And you have to unlock parts of the brain either through behavior or emotional states together to get to those places, right? So it is when we recall or do certain behaviors, they're primed by states of mind, certain, emotions and other cues that can help get us there. And like if you ever visit a friend that has a dog that has, very behavioral tendencies, and they have a backyard, and you look out in the backyard and you see the little paths worn, that's very much a lot of our brain activity. It doesn't want to expend a lot of energy doing things. So in order to pull sections from our brain, it creates very efficient pathways. And this is good on several items. Our brains are just the computers looking for, predictive modeling, least pain available. And so it's going to use these very efficiently. The problem is you go to the warehouse and you're like, I remember that one thing, or I need to stop doing this one behavior. And I know, and you immediately start reaching for these, how you think to get there. And you don't think spatially like, it exists here. Your brain just starts going down the worn pathways, and all of a sudden you like end up where you were before. And you're like, what? This isn't where I was looking for. I was looking for something completely else. The psychedelics there's studies. There needs to be more studies, but there's still not a lot known. But what is known is, under controlled circumstances during these help release us from some of those traditional pathways and help other areas of the brain interact with each other.
Especially ketamine, because ketamine is a disruptor.
Yes. So I will, I can talk for a while, but I Lisa, if you want to chime in here on any of this, that would be very helpful.
Sure. So I did some refreshing of my memory. I've studied these a long time ago. And while they're new to us, right? Like as far as studies go, they're finally approving. I think 2021 was the first approval in 50 plus years for research. And that was literally just for psilocybin and tobacco cessation. It wasn't even like the treatment resistant depression. So the first approval that we got was in 2021 for the recent stuff. So before we dive too far into it, I just want to give a nod to populations who've been using these for thousands of years and may have some really amazing input. One of the studies I was reading
was a lot of
was
indigenous people that do,
right. One of the articles I was reading was like, hopefully we can lean on that knowledge a little bit, because sometimes Western countries will kind of we're discovering these things in the last 2 years, but at the same time,
it's been around for thousands of years.
If we can look to some healers for information, that would be extremely helpful. So I just want to put that out there. So the two properties we're mainly looking at are the psychedelic, which is like the altered states of consciousness and patterns and perceptions. And then the dissociation is one other really big piece of it, because that, when you're talking about treatment for treatment-resistant depression or PTSD, like you said, Patrick, those ingrained patterns in your brain, the dissociation is part of what really is helping people to get away from treatment resistance. Because like with PTSD, your feelings are so strong and your perceptions are so strong about the trauma.
There's also treatment resistant depression. So
Yes.
I mean, they have to deal with that as well.
Yeah, and the dissociation piece, I think, is really helping along with the altered perception. So the National Institute of Health's very basic description is that these temporarily alter the thought patterns, moods, and perceptions of reality. So it's really about changing the reality that is ingrained in your brain. And we're hitting a lot of the serotonin, one in particular receptor, also an MDMA receptors. So there's different chemicals in the brain, like we've talked about the lock and the key with the drugs. But the thing, ketamine, I mean, it's been legal, right? And for therapists have been using it off label for a while.
Yes, yes.
So-
They're still using the. Now, I also want to say that these treatments, if anybody decides to go down this pathway, should be done in a medical facility with people who are schooled in these treatments. These are not things that I would recommend taking home and doing by yourself.
Right. So Lisa brought up, the, other cultures having spiritual guides or item like that. Like these are treated as spiritual journeys. And I think there's a good reason for it, because a lot of these, the dissociation to get to that point where we're embracing that neuroplasticity is a very vulnerable state too. And this is also not like, I'll pop a couple Advil and feel okay in 4 hours. Like, so the main ones that we're talking about, especially that are coming to light, I mentioned the MDMA recently. Ketamine is a very traditional, and psilocybin, and
magic mushroom.
That comes in some of the mushroom variants and some other pieces. And then there's a few, I've seen mescaline on the fringe of this discussion, but they all kind of do different things within it. But the point is that these aren't like one-stop shop pill popping solutions, and work needs to be done around it. Meaning, like, the effective therapies that I've seen come out of this are like, you develop a rapport with the person, applying this, so it's not like you walk into a doctor's office and say, hey doc, give me one of these, like, this. And these are people, like, I would say modern spiritual advisors. Like, they're versed in therapy, they're versed in, like, understanding trauma and other pieces like that. And they can help create an environment for your journey that you would feel safe and comfortable and would be able to coach you through, because while you're vulnerable, there's a reason why people say, like, don't have a bad trip, don't think of X, Y, and Z, they help coach through some of the not, when the brain tries to, like, start resisting this stuff, like, it can go south very quickly.
Yes. Even Gabor Mate said that this it can be a treatment for a lot of people, but there's also still that underlining trauma that needs to be dealt with. And some of these things will open your brain up to that traumatic experience or whatever experience is, and that can lead you down the path of a bad trip.
And then most importantly, post event is, a large integration effort. Meaning, like, and then it's not like you get done with it and the next day you're like, all right, let's compare notes. It's like, oftentimes you'll see them take days and weeks. Different for the brain. Like, you just had your whole computer, like,
your whole brain
rewired,
scrambled.
shut down and brought back up. You're not immediately, like, the brain doesn't work like, oh, I'm just running on the new OS. Fine. You're, like, constantly, like, your fundamental view of the world has been changed. So you're constantly, like, beginning to reintegrate and see behaviors. This is how the brain deals with the neuroplasticity and dealing with the resistance towards a lot of these stuff. So following up post and dealing with integration with other items that we talked about. I saw CBT on here, like other modalities paired with it, greatly increases effectiveness, right? And it's treated as a whole. It's not like, again, this is not us endorsing like, hey, go pop a couple, pieces of ketamine, fall into a K-hole, and then your life is going to be better, right? Or, go on a walkabout and come back a different person after you go on a binge or something like that.
Yeah, these are definitely things that need to be done in a secure environment. If this is the path that you want to go down, but some people don't need to go down this path. They can deal with what's going on with just therapy, with just doing meditation or doing other types of things without going to this extreme of a step. But that being said, this has helped a lot of people with one or two sessions, and that's all these people really needed. Not everybody, of course, but it's there.
Yep. Your mileage will vary. Lisa, I think we cut you off. Were you finishing your thought?
No, we're good.
Okay.
I was just even the phase 3 trials were integrative, right? It wasn't just drop a hit and go. And so I think one of the conversations too that I'm sure we'll get into is the conversation around, is the society ready to front those costs and allowances for people to be gone for a few weeks at a time
that was
to safely and effectively do this? That
was going to be my next question. Is do you think society is ready for this type of advancement in therapy?
No. we're so far. We don't even really have good internet here in the States yet,
I mean, I personally think we are. We're seeing a larger uptrend in stuff like discussions like ayahuasca and other items like that. The fact that the anti-drug culture was so strong in the States that the fact that we're even getting MDMA back on the docket to talk about clinically is a huge gain. Psilocybin being on there, huge. And I think that's a long way to go, to like, those are I'm happy for those, because we talked about how to, dealing with drugs and, criminalizing the drugs and then the behavior and everything like that, how that spirals downward. These are the first drugs, because they can provide a positive benefit when coupled with other therapies, that I think are opening the door to realize that it's not a binary, here's good drugs, here's bad drugs, and end of story.
Yes. I was watching a TED Talk, and he was talking about doing psilocybin as a microdose, which is less than 5 grams, I think. And using other modalities with it, like niacin and lion's mane, which, are all over the counter stuff. And some of the tests that they did on people, just basic, finger tapping tests. It was amazing, the result with the people who didn't do any of it, to the people who did microdosing, to the people who did a combination, was just astounding.
So back to the question of, is our society ready for it yet? Patrick, my sort of push on that is us citizens are ready for it, but the government is not. This is the disadvantage of us having 50 states in our union where we make our individual rules. We don't even know how to legalize marijuana. We don't even understand how to legalize gay marriage across the board. It's bizarre. We're so archaic in this stuff. So I'm frustrated with that, if you can't tell. But I think that people are talking about it is given some accreditation. The microdosing, I've heard, for a lot of people is super beneficial too with psilocybin. That seems very attractive when I was researching it. Ron White, one of my favorite comedians. Are you familiar, Patrick? Mm-hmm. He was a heavy drinker. That was part of his stand-up.
He'd have his whiskey glass in hand
and a
with
cigar. So he quit last year. He realized, shocker, like us all that overindulge, he realized he had a serious drinking problem. He was starting to have physical and mental effects from it all. So he went to South America. I want to say Peru. That could be incorrect. So don't hang on that word. But he went and saw a shaman and did the ayahuasca journey. But to your point, it wasn't just go down, take some ayahuasca. It was a 3-day session in a sense that he did it, like a discussion, then a day of this whole thing, and then a post, like 2 or 3 days of J-Ret said, Jacob, the reintroduction. It's like you got a brand new Linux operating system. You got to learn some command lines for it. You can use the graphical user interface, but it's not going to pan out too well.
I think the underlying issue, if we're ready, not ready, is like, I think it just goes back to like, if you've developed that internal dialogue enough to be and raise your awareness to like, hey, I'm checking in with myself, I'm exploring modalities. Am I attached to this? I think attachment is a very, important aspect to look at, some of the pursuit of these things. Like, if you're gripping it so hard that you're like thinking that this will fix you, then you're probably not ready for it. Right.
I don't know. I think if you have a seeking mind and you're trying to reach or grasp on anything to help you, which a lot of people who are in addictive states are just grasping at anything that will help, this might be a modality to go down, as long as you're in the secured facility and you're around people who can help, with the entrance, the procedure, and the exit of the whole thing. I think it would be good, whether you're, grasping or not.
Yeah. So
that's just my personality, my opinion. But
good discussion point. Oh, Jacob did make a clarification. I was on board with him. He's like 100 milligrams for microdose. 5 grams will fucking explode your spirit.
You're right. I think my 5 grams would be like the hero dose or something like that. There's like the micro, the macro, and then the hero dose.
Yeah. So with any of this stuff, back to Patrick's point, it's the modality of it for sure. When I was getting my treatment for depression and anxiety, my primary care practitioner, my psychiatrist, the first thing they asked was, who's your therapist? Are you getting therapy? And my psychiatrist, who was doing medication management, she was very stringent about that. So I was impressed by that. My therapist was okay. She had her own struggles. It's a bizarre, man, when you have a therapist and you're like, are you okay?
The wounded healer is a very... there's a stereotype there for a reason.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah,
we're all wounded.
Yeah,
right.
We are.
And those that know pain the most, can help reflect in others on their journey more so too. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
One other
healer.
Yeah. One other thing I liked that the National Institute of Health brought up in one of their articles that I wholly agree with is this deaths of despair, they call it. So in the late teens, we started seeing a decrease in life expectancies, a lot of which was due to opiate overdoses and things like that. And so when you have a lot of mortality increases around and morbidity from suicide, drug overdoses, and alcoholism, which are all, again, intertwined, maybe society is getting closer to listening, because when you start to see people of every bucket of personality and income and life walk start dying all over the place, I think people are a little more apt to start listening, or at least some people are a little more apt to start listening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was watching something. I think it was another TED Talk, and the guy who was the topic was mindfulness, and he had mentioned that in the 1920s we had a spike in depression rates because of the depression, and then it started to go down, and then all of a sudden within the past couple years we've had another spike in depression, and he thinks obviously it's because we're have our faces in phones and we're experiencing more loneliness and yada yada yada, but still there's that spike in depression in our society at this point that might force us to be more open to to these different modalities.
Yeah. It's a turbulent time.
Remember like the hypnosis train was it the 80s and 90s
Oh, yeah.
where smoking cessation was all about hypnosis and depression was all about hypnosis. And so I think it's just another, right?
I feel like, some, trends come in decades, every 3 decades or whatever. The hypnosis one, yeah. I remember that one vividly.
So I think we're talking about the different processes, just to name a few. We got CBT, NMDA, ECT, ayahuasca, ketamine, psilocybin.
Well, you're naming therapies
Right.
and then specific drugs too.
Well, there you
So
yes, got them all in the bucket.
EMDR and DBT and
Yeah, alphabet soup. So so with that, Judy, to your point or your statement, and Lisa and Patrick, how does one know when to look at this stuff? Do you wake up one day and you've gone through depression for a couple weeks and you think, should I call a psychiatrist or should I fly to Peru? You know what I mean? I don't mean that's I was being silly, but what do you go through? A person like me would suffer for years until I figured out, that I owed it to myself to seek alternative forms of any sort of therapy. I don't want to hone in on any of these ones.
This is what I'm saying, like this, putting yourself in the state of mind to raise awareness. Like you don't wake up and say like, am I ready? And you go up to the local CVS and be like, can I have one psychedelic drug therapy, please?
And a condom.
Yeah. The point is, to answer that question, you have to do some soul searching, meaning like, all right, I'm going to, research it, understand maybe some of the differences, talk to people. If you're not a researcher, like find more about it, like basically give yourself a series of prompts to be like, all right, am I checking in on myself? Well, this path, if not the psychedelic journey, if not that modality, then something else can help me reflect if I'm ready. And by that time, you're bringing in enough information. And when you are ready, you will know. You may have some doubts about it, but you'll know. Like you'll have the means and the capability, or to at least the understanding to find the means and capability to get to what you need.
I think everybody's like alcoholism or drug addiction. Everybody's path is going to be different.
Yes.
Okay, I get that, but that's where we hit a roadblock where we live. The barrier to entry is insurmountable. I can't go to my doctor. He's the best, and be like, Dr. H, I would like to try a ayahuasca trip. He'd be like, what the fuck? No. If I went to my psychiatrist and said, I would like to try ketamine, she'd be like, absolutely not. You know what I mean? So this is where it gets convoluted. We can talk about this stuff, but again, we end up in this point to where no one knows how to get going with these things.
You find people to ask. Like if you ask that, I think you're assuming answers. I think some people in the support community would say like, okay, why would you like to pursue that?
All right.
And
Also,
you're going to have to like talk about why. You're not going to have to say like, because I just want to get there. We always talk about trying to skip to the end. Oh, I want to have my life-altering journey. I want to pop my pill and be good. I want to have my brain reformed. Mm-hmm. Guess what? As disorienting as it is, I'm not going to call it a painful experience, but it's an experience you're going to have, again, everything that we talked about, the grieving process, and like when you go through that much change, there's a lot of pain, meaning new growth. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have to find the resources that are going to have to help reflect on that. If I can't go to my doctor and say, I want to go down a K-hole and become a different person. No, you're going to have to like go to like find a therapist or whatever and be like, I've been thinking about this. And they're going to have to like ask questions to help challenge you on that so you can understand your answer. And they may be like, all right, that I don't have the means to do that. But you're obviously going down a path, and they may not be able to provide something. Maybe they will. Maybe you're like, maybe they would say like, this person went through it, or I have a colleague. We don't know. But until you start doing that research, it's the universe. If you put it out there, it will answer. Meaning, if you're looking for that and seeking for that and building that around your character, then more avenues for that pursuit will open.
Yeah, and to kind of back up on the asking your doctor, I have to say that not the doctor's advice. They may be the most fantastic doctor in the world, but they're not the end all be all. So go out there and do some more research. Have a seeking mind, and get more opinions from more locations to build your own opinion.
And maybe if you go in enough of your trusted network and they shut you down on it, that's another item to consider in itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I
go ahead.
I think about how much planning and calculating we did when we were using, and so it seems it seems like a big project and a big ask to do all the background research. And like, what is, if you're like in certain states or America or whatever countries use insurance, like, what does my insurance allow? What does it not allow? Can I afford it? Where do I go? What are the providers that do it? Do people know? Like, I don't want to check TikTok, so I'm going to go to my, like you said, my trusted circle. But we did all of that and more to use. And so it's like, am I serious about this? And how much work am I willing to put in to do the background research on
take that
whether or
same
not it's
energy and take that same
Yeah.
energy towards using and turn it towards finding answers. Yeah.
As a GD mathematician on the fly, we talked about doing the calculus, for using, if you use that brain capacity, for this.
Yeah. Okay. What else?
That was all I mean, I could go into the, the micro, if you look at the chemical compound of serotonin that we produce in our brain and the chemical compound of psilocybin, it's almost identical. So basically, a lot of these are basically serotonin or very close to stuff that we already produce in our brain.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'd like to see more of the dynamics of how that plays together, because when I was doing tons of research on all the damn pills I was taking, we all have to have a pretty succinct mix of serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine.
And not all serotonin comes from your brain.
Right. A lot of it comes from your stomach.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and when you're out of balance on those, that's where things go haywire. I think that was the struggle with me when I had the serotonin reuptake inhibitors, which, by the way, Lisa, I don't know if you're aware of this, but doctors are starting to say, like, well, we're not really sure how that even works.
Isn't that great?
Yeah. Isn't that lovely?
I'm like, oh, okay.
40 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the beautiful thing about science, I personally think that's awesome. It's like, it's almost like the neuroplasticity of society knowledge. Science is the way of like, hey, we came to these conclusions before and we thought this. Here is new evidence otherwise. Let's we need to rethink this.
Yeah, unfortunately, society doesn't like change.
Right.
So we're kind of stuck.
I did have one final thought on this discussion, and with my sobriety journey, I worked with a coach, and he also does this type of modality and had gone through it himself. And I was asking a bunch of questions. They talk about the plant medicine, and he has sessions where he brings people to his house, and they this is after like you do several talk therapy sessions setting it up, and then they set out like a whole 5-day event and several sessions, and then follow up with the integration and everything like that. So I was asking questions about the journey, and there was one thing that stuck out with our discussion, and I was like, well, your first time down, you know, because I was worried. I'm like, well, what if it turns bad? What if it goes whatever? And he was trying to explain, and of course, since I have not been through this is like trying to speak through the looking glass, or, you know, it's a limited perception of what actually happened. But he tried to explain, like, he broke down in tears because he finally had the realization that he chose his life. And I was like, what do you mean? And he explained that it wasn't like everything's presented as a choose your own adventure. I'll choose X, Y, and Z, and here it is. And like consciously thinking of it, he realized that subconsciously of all his effective decisions on his behavior affected his environment around him and brought forth, you know, everything else that was around him. And he said it wasn't more of a thought, but more of a feeling and a sensation of understanding the totality of his whole existence was like that. So
for some people, I've read that it can be very enlightening. It's very profound changes that happens in their lives. And for other people, they either don't experience, you know, they experience the hallucinogen trip that they go on, but they don't have any kind of life-changing alterations. And for some, they have a bad trip. But you know, I think it's just up to the individual who decides whether they want to go through it or whether they want to try a different modality.
Personally, I would like to continue to work with my coach on that, but one aspect about this is because the state of it's in, you know, access to these items in a safe environment is very expensive. And then also, even, you know, in my own life, I tried to bring this up with my wife, and it's like, you want to pay how much to go like do a bunch of drugs in the middle of a forest? You know, I don't know why my wife.
I know
talks
she
like
just
that,
deep
but,
Arkansas. Your wife just went deep Arkansas.
But you know, and I'm not like, you know, there are aspects about that conversation that is frustrating, but at the same time, you know, like I get it.
Yeah.
You know, I get it. You know, it's a very hard pill to swallow. Pardon the pun, but it just. You know, the long way to go on these conversations. And, you know, that's why I look to more, you know, I don't own the actions of others, but the best I can do is lead and model the way. You know, when we see continued studies and other efforts around this, you know, participating and educating myself and others is the best I can do at this point. And maybe, you know, maybe someday that conversation will change.
And I think one important thing that you kind of brought up in that about your coach is that this is a holistic process, right? Like it's not just the drug or the experience, it's the spirituality behind it. And so whatever those awakenings and those enlightenments are not going to happen without the biopsychosocial spiritual components being addressed. And for a lot of people, I think the spiritual side of things can be scary in early recovery, depending on your past and your experiences.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why in a lot of the groups, they say higher power, like who is your higher power? As long as it's not you, right? Like it's, for some people it's God, for some people it's other things. And so
the universe or Buddha or what, you know, whatever
your culture comes from. And so, but including it though, not disregarding it in the process, it has to be that holistic where spiritual is included to obtain those enlightenments.
Yeah. So I was reading Jacob's statement there. He said he's glad it helped when he needed it to, but it didn't have issues. But he didn't have issues with reality perception now. Did you mean to say you do, Jacob, have issues with reality perception now, or you don't? But yeah, I think when you guys said it, that's, side effects to everything for sure.
He said, yes, I do.
So yeah, depending on your use and your mileage of your sobriety journey as well. You know, I've talked about this a lot. I had a really tough time my first year. It was brutal. because it was all of that. It was all of that awakening, Lisa, that you're talking about, that that tends to catch a lot of us addicts and alcoholics off guard.
Well, that was, the reason why we did what we did.
Yeah.
So we didn't have to face those
Absolutely.
realities.
But we told each other that it always wasn't the reason why. But yeah,
the things we tell ourselves.
Profound impact. I know Patrick heard me cry and whine about it a lot. It was tough. That's why we always like to tell people, just again, the advantage and disadvantage of having knowledge at our fingertips. When you type into Google, what will I be like after I'm sober for 6 weeks? The picture that it paints, you're like, oh, fuck yeah, this is going to be amazing. Not a lot of those give you the 1, 2, 3, oh shit, brace yourself statement. But It depends. Judy and I were heavy drinkers for 30 years. So did a lot of damage to our spirit, soul, consciousness, and dopamine receptors along the way.
Be curious.
Be curious.
Yeah.
Not telling you it's going to be easy. I'm telling you it's going to be
worth it.
That's right.
Yep.
Okay. This is a fantastic discussion again.
Yeah, I think, ending after doing the homework on this and pulling up some old stuff that I looked at, like there's just so much still unknown about this.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the frustration of it, because it's not mainstream, but at the same time, like there's a lot of opportunity around it, at least for education wise. So again, with everything that we do around here, go out there, put some knowledge in, or college in your knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the fun about modalities, right? Is it may not be time for them. It may be time for them. It may be appropriate for you. It may not be appropriate for you, but that's the journey, right?
Yeah.
You constantly get to find new mirrors to look at yourself upon and, change your perception. So I think, the very journey of understanding this is a smaller sense of a neuroplasticity exercise in itself, if that makes sense.
Yes, most definitely. I was just going to say that you have to kind of be neuroplastic in your journey, in your way, the way you approach stuff, to be flexible and open and expand yourself, and be willing to change and willing to grow with all of the different stuff that's going to happen with your journey.
Yeah. Odie, you want me to answer that one, Patrick?
Yeah.
Odie
That's
brings
an important one.
Yeah, Odie has a really good question. How do we know that all of this research is real or valid? I have heard of people being cured from depression their whole life, and doctors just keep taking money. Yeah, absolutely. That's a tough one. Some of the one of the medications that I was taking, venlafaxine, Effexor, there's a lot of research out there that doctors just appreciate you staying on that forever, because getting off of it is such a wild withdrawal trip. But when we talked about this before, too, talking about, if I do this medication, then what's going to be our exit strategy? That's something that's really not talked about. So it's tough. Patrick, I think you've got some better insight. Odie, to answer it from my perspective is, I don't know. There's, of course, some doctors are not in it for free. They like to make money.
Yeah, I was also curious if you find something like psilocybin or ketamine or something that you the treatment is only 1 or 2 times, and then that's pretty much it. It's not going to be very fiscally advisable for any physician who is in it for money wise.
Yeah.
So again, I will invite everybody here to embrace the scientific method, meaning, a lot of the published studies are nice because they have to be peer reviewed, right? And confirmed, and statistical methods confirmed. But again, they are limited in their set. So it starts out with a hypothesis, saying like if certain people take one thing, then, these behaviors are seen. And this is where causation and correlation can get confusing sometimes. For example, a basic one from the topic that we're talking about, you could have a study saying like 80% of people that went through psilocybin, taking this event, cured their depression, But here's the thing. There's a lot of gray area in that. Curing depression is vague. And then so be curious. Well, did they have the pre-treatment going up to it? Did they have the post-treatment? Did they do the full integration? Was it really about taking this one item? Did that, and this is trying to be scientific about it, being like, okay, so there's obviously some sort of correlation with this, but it's not the whole picture. Meaning you have to understand your sources. Okay, this source verified and this statistical method that this was the commonality here. This part is verified. There are other aspects to this study or understanding that need to be known, and just being honest about that, because this is where I would fight some people, or not fight, but when we say there's so-called when we want to say the medical professionals just want to push drugs or whatever, because they say this drug will cure your depression. They're working off of clinically proven studies. However, I think there needs to be more information brought into that, i.e. holistic understanding of these approaches and understanding that items of the exit strategy of treating the person. It's not, you can't treat this as, I have X problem, let's put it in a vacuum, here's my one solution, right? The ends do not justify the means. There are no ends. I hope this is making sense to say the foundation for the medical community and the clinical studies are very proven and are some of our best scientific methods. There's a reason why these are very mainstream, but at the same time, they're not end all be all, meaning there's more information to go out there. We look at the studies even further. Oh, maybe there needs to be a study on these methods of of those who took the treatment. What was the post-integration like? How effective was the post-integration methods with it, right? And then we begin to build our catalog of knowledge larger, where we can develop more in-tune theories about it. This is why the theory of gravity is called a theory. It's a collection of provable items. It's not like one rule says gravity is this, right? It's a collection of provable, observable happenings.
I did see one study where they said that they couldn't prove that there was a correlation between psilocybin and the benefits for treating depression and everything. But the study was done on healthy people, not people with depression.
Right. Right. So there's a ton of other wrinkles in those studies, who are the people, what were the conditions, how's the access, how big was the sample size, how was it applied, what are the surrounding things? There are a ton of things that we can continue to educate ourselves on those.
Yeah.
And it's also
people who've been using them for thousands of years.
Yeah, very much so. The people who have been the indigenous people who have been using these things for generations and generations have got way more knowledge than any of us do at this point.
Yeah.
Well, and even science admits what percentage of the brain do we know about, really? So
a very small percent.
Not the majority.
I mean, it's
so it's ever evolving.
All I know is I know nothing. And part of this too is I love healthy skepticism, right? And I think that's important here to keep digging. That's the being curious point. And at the same time, I am frustrated with some of the pharmacological trends that we have seen, but these are societal things there are going to be doctors that oversubscribe and prescribe stuff thinking they are too part of the same humanistic problem, thinking that they're solving a problem just by giving X, right? They want to be valid. They want to be seen as a doctor. I can cure you. Here's X. It's the scientific studies say X happens and it's done, right? We have, and I'm not blaming them, meaning they are that's their Buddha nature. They are a product of the system that they are brought up in, right? If we want that to change, then we have to embark on our own scientific methods and journeys. We can't blindly just accept what is presented to us. But if that's going to be our position, saying I don't trust anything that's been given me, then you too need to reinforce your scientific method to be like, if your thoughts are challenged on that, be prepared to bring receipts, right? Like, make sure your methods are sound, or make sure you're willing to change. Like, if you have new information, that's been presented to you that changes that, don't go seeking out more information that just trying to confirms your way in a roundabout way. Trying to find a way to integrate that into a new thought or new theory, right?
Absolutely. I think, will you guys indulge me with my conspiracy theories about this stuff, which my conspiracy theories are always true, by the way. A lot of these, there's a bunch of good comments in there about traditional stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Here to answer Odie's question even more, here in the United States, we have the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, who sits in their ivory tower making up these rules and regulations about stuff. And let's just be honest, all that shit's just 100% governed by lobbyists and who's paying more money for what. Hence the reason why marijuana is not federally legal. And
Well, it's
alcohol.
still a class
I'm
one.
going to come at you sideways here, John. And I for those that I'm not going to say who, we work for a larger ivory tower.
Oh, for sure. But the FDA is the ones who put these weird seals of approval on stuff that, yes, a lot of them have their warrants, but you can't, their classification methods are all backwards. Marijuana is much more penalized than opiate levels.
They're basing that off the information that was given, and yes, their methods can be biased, but again, that doesn't mean.
Well, I think they should be challenged though and turned upside down. There's
more studies.
These are
more
the same
information.
Ones. Yeah, but they're the same ones that also just go cha-chink, put a seal on a medication, and then 3 years later, it's like, oh shit, by the way, that causes cancer. Our bad. And then 50 years ago, it was still saying, yeah, doctors are okay to say that Camel Unfiltered are good for you. It's just a broken fucking system, in my opinion. So we can be curious, we can challenge this stuff, but I don't know. There's wrinkles for everybody. We got, Odie sitting where he lives that has no way how to figure out how to navigate this stuff. So
Marcus says FDA, they blew it during COVID.
Yeah.
Yes, they did.
No shit. So I don't know. I'm frustrated by it because the path to entry is vastly different and roadblocky for a lot of people.
So basically find your own path.
Yeah.
But not on TikTok.
Not on TikTok.
No. Do research.
Yeah. Follow Sober Mind on YouTube. we will give you unbiased arguments about stuff.
Very
Unbiased.
Our way's right, and that's the way it is.
Yeah. Lisa, I said unbiased arguments.
Okay.
We present our journeys. Okay, we got to get ready to wrap it up. So next weekend. Oh, by the way, this subject is. Oh, Dad, let Ozzy out of the room. He's getting ready to tear the door down. This subject that we talked about today was brought up by Cujo.
Where is Cujo, by the way? I don't see him on here.
He is at a invitational tournament.
Very cool.
I don't know exactly what. That's all he said. But he brought that to me in our Discord on future show topics. So join our Hug for Cujo. Join our Discord and let us know what you'd like to talk about next. If you guys are good with it, because we failed again. I think this is the 52nd time in a row we
didn't come up with the topic for next week.
For next week, because we come up with it after the show. I would like to talk about going back. We do this once in a while, so I'd like to just take it back to the roots and talk about our individual alcohol and or drug journeys again. You guys good with that?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of questions about it, and I want to get down to the raw details again about how Judy and I started really compounding our drinking behavior and what led to that, and then how we decided to get off of it. I think it'd be a good refresher.
I'm down for that.
The caveat is, though, Friday I have shoulder surgery. So, according to my orthopedic surgeon, he said he's going to give me a 48-hour nerve blocker dose, so I might be good. Or I might be sitting here and it's going to wear off and I'm going to shit myself and gently crawl away and go to bed.
You won't be able to crawl.
Roll away. Brian said FDA and CDC equals a little smiley poopy.
Big pile of poop.
All right. Lisa, closing thoughts, final words.
Love y'all.
Love you.
Love you too. Thank you so much
Andy
for joining
and-
us. Thank you everybody for
Everyone in
joining
the
us. We really
chat.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chat's gone crazy again. We appreciate everybody. Thank you for all the new folks that joined. Marcus, thank you so much for joining. Now the expectation is here your next Saturday. I know where you live. Judy, my beautiful queen, thank you so much for everything that you do for me and put up with.
Thanks for making this podcast
Yeah, thank you.
channel.
Love you too, Denise. Odie, you're the best with your, I don't know what all your emoticons are. Patrick, closing thoughts.
No, I mean, keep on keeping on.
You're the best.
Yeah.
You bring the spice, the zest. All right, everyone. Thank
You
you
were
so
very
much.
passionate today.
Yeah,
It was
very.
very cool.
Very got the sauce in you. got the juju. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Oh, by the way, real quick, man, we've got 1,700 and something subscribers. So when we hit 1,000 subs January 20th, in less than a month, we got just over a month, we got 700 additional subscribers. So it's been
Yeah.
pretty crazy.
Well, it's your shorts, babe. They do fantastic.
Yes.
Everyone likes shorts.
Everybody likes their shorts.
Skies out, thighs out.
That's right. Sun's out, guns out. I'll never forget when I yelled that at the guy. Okay. That's it. We were signing off. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I am playing my third playthrough of Denise. Third playthrough of Elden Ring because the Shadow of the Erd Tree
The
DLC
DLC
is
is
dropping
coming out,
June
yeah.
21st.
I got talked into Helldivers too, so
Yeah.
it has been a pleasant surprise. Like it is like straight Starship Troopers satire humor, like done way over the top, and they did it really good. And then they get straight to gameplay.
Yeah.
So good as a co-op. I got into it, enjoyed it so much. I realized that why it was such a big surprise to everybody.
Yeah. Is this something that Odie might consider? Oh, Star Wars. Guess not.
Anybody up for some duck hunt?
Farming simulator.
That's a real thing.
I know.
I'm just waiting for the day because you get really passionately involved on whatever you're focusing on. I'm like waiting for the day that I'll come down here and you'll have your Euro Truck Simulator with like the whole cab
man.
built and the shifter and like the windows and everything.
I saw
The
that guy.
screens.
You saw that
Yeah,
guy?
yeah.
Mom, Jesus. You know me too
You're
well.
you're
Patrick.
jealous.
I am. I was a real truck driver, but I'm like, that shit would be fun. Okay, here we go. We're signing off.
Be kind to yourself.
Be kind to yourselves.
Be patient with yourself.
God damn it, Patrick.
You're loved.
You are loved. We got to get Lisa's portion in that somehow. Bye, y'all.